What's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres with ScoopDuck on 3, coming to you live on Thursday, August 22nd, 2024, back with another edition of the Oregon Recruiting Hour, where we dive in to the latest headlines and developments around the Oregon Ducks on the recruiting trail. Joining me to break it all down is ScoopDuck owner and publisher Justin Hopkins. How we doing, J Hop? Happy Thursday.
Yeah, Thirsty Thursday, doing good. Might have got after it last night in golf league, but that's what you do. Sometimes you take advantage of a Wednesday too.
Definitely. Yeah, you got to get out there on the links too. We got to golf together at some point because I'm starting to get into it. I need to get my first pair of starter clubs. So I'm definitely not on your level, but maybe the next time I get out to Oregon or sometime down the line, we could do it.
Oh, I'm not that good. I'm kind of what they refer to as a bogey golfer. That's most of the holes I'm getting a bogey on, which is okay. I mean, that's not bad. And then of course I still sprinkle in the occasional blow up hole that we all get, which makes you want to break your clubs in half or slam them or whatever. But I really don't take it that seriously. I go out because I enjoy, being on the golf course. I enjoy, learning the game, and I just enjoy being around my friends. And I love that you can drink while you're playing it. So that's why it's a great sport.
Sure. Can't go wrong with that. Yeah, we went golfing when I was on my Hawaii vacation, and it was a beautiful, beautiful spot. The guy that was getting us set up just kind of subtly said right before we went out, "Oh yeah, it's the hardest course on the island." I'm like, "Oh great, here I am, played golf 3 times, and I'm about to get myself into quite the contest."
Yeah, I mean, when people tell you there's a tough course out there, they're usually pretty dang tough. So. The word everybody will use is unforgiving. And that means what that means is you're about to lose a lot of golf balls.
Yes, I lost a lot of golf balls, but we'll move on. We'll move on from that, and hopefully I'll bounce back on the next round that I play. So we're really glad to have you guys with us here on the Ducks Dish podcast, also live on the ScoopDuck on 3 YouTube channel. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And hey, while you're at it, throw a question or a comment in the live chat and banter with us as we want to get you guys involved and make you a part of the show. Starting off today's show, let's talk about one of the best defensive backs in all of high school football, and that is the number 1 safety in the On3 rankings 2025 Galveston, Texas ball safety Jonah Williams, who is set to make his commitment on Saturday, August 24th. He's working from a top 5 of USC, Oregon, Texas A&M, and LSU. I was hearing some rumblings in the last 24, 48 hours, and I decided to put my pick in, switch up my original pick, which was Oregon, and I logged that prediction in favor of Texas. So the Longhorns look like the team to beat, at least on my end, for the number 1 safety in the country. And I know not a lot of people liked that pick on ScoopDuck, but Oregon can't win every battle, and I'd been hearing that I think Texas was in a good spot for this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know here a couple weeks ago, last few weeks, I've been, kind of mentioning to the ScoopDuck readers, hey, this isn't looking so good for Oregon. Oregon was in a great spot and seemed like they had some momentum, and then this thing kind of swung away from them. And that's what happens with recruiting. I mean, we know that there's, ebbs and flows, and we know that these things kind of just keep moving around, and some of it's NIL, some of it's because of, just relationship. Some of it's because of location. Right. And I think, that's the big one for me. That's great. That's the big one for me with Jonah Williams is I think that you look at where he's at in the state of Texas, and I think this is a Texas and LSU battle. Currently, I'm with you. I think Texas is the team to beat. Looks like Steve Wiltfong jumped on with your pick as well and joined and made a Texas prediction shortly after as well. Can totally see that because I know in terms of baseball, they just, pulled the coach over from A&M there. And, baseball, football, they do a lot there. But I do think I do think this one boils down to distance at the end of the day. Oregon's the only one, if you look at the Final Four or whatever, that doesn't really fit. I think apparently USC is in this, but nobody's giving them a shot in hell, and I'm certainly not. So, to me, it's Texas, LSU, Texas A&M might be kind of flirting with them just behind it. And then you've got Oregon and USC kind of on an island over here. So to me, that just kind of screams distance, wants to play near his family. I can't fault him for that. And I still appreciate that Oregon took the swing anyways.
And even though I put my pick on Texas, there's still a long way to go before signing day. So while I don't think right now he ultimately ends up at Oregon, who knows? A lot can change in 3 months and some change. So the other thing here that was kind of behind my Texas pick, we've seen the Longhorns miss on a handful of really, really top in-state guys. Michael Fasusi came off the board yesterday, announcing his commitment to Oklahoma. He kind of felt up until the last couple of weeks that he was going to be heading to Texas. That's at least what all the buzz looked like on the surface. But we know that Oregon was also involved there at one point, and maybe he gets back on campus for that official visit later on this fall. And then Decorian Moore, we all know the story there. After he decommitted from LSU, everybody had Texas pegged as the team to beat, but now he is an Oregon Duck commit. So Texas has to get some of these guys. And I think, like you said, to your point, distance is certainly on their side. And they got some momentum behind their baseball program, which I think kind of sweetens the pot a little bit for Jonah Williams. So really, when all is said and done, I don't think it's the end of the world if you're Oregon. That's why you recruit a lot of different guys, a lot of really high caliber guys. And you got a commitment from Trey McNutt, the number 2 safety in the On3 rankings out of Cleveland. So you would love to get another 5-star if you could, but you can't get all of them. And Oregon still got a really solid class.
Yeah. Like I said, finishing my last point, I appreciate that Oregon took a swing. I mean, that's what you do. Jordan said it best. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And, if Oregon didn't try and recruit Trey McNutt, if they didn't try and recruit Decorian Moore, those guys wouldn't be on the commit list right now. So, I do think that Oregon will remain after Williams in hopes that maybe there's something down the line. Maybe the defensive back coach from Texas leaves. Maybe their DC leaves, gets hired somewhere. We don't know. There's so many unknowns. Maybe Texas flops this year on the football field. We don't know. So all those things could happen. You just stay in touch and see if there's anything down the line. But for now, it certainly looks like this won't be Oregon. That's for sure.
So just wanted to hit on that kind of off the top here on the podcast, but we got another 5-star that we can talk about, Justin, and Chris here. Chris 541 is segueing us perfectly into our next topic on the show, and that is 5-star plus cornerback Naim Offord out of Birmingham, Alabama, Parker High School, currently committed to the Ohio State Buckeyes. But our guy Chad Simmons coming in with a big story on Wednesday evening, breaking the news that Naim Offord is expected in Eugene to visit Oregon when the Ducks play Ohio State. What did you make of this development, J-Hop?
Yeah, once again, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So, right now, obviously he's committed to Ohio State. Alabama's been in the mix a lot. Auburn's in the mix right there as well. And, it's really weird to me to bring in a kid that's committed to your opponent in for a visit, at your place. Just that dynamic always just seems weird to me, but that's great for Oregon. Oregon clearly has that game circled, not just, because it's a big game, but also because of the atmosphere. It looks like they're going to cash in with, we're hearing it's like the 3rd or 4th recruit that's mentioned being here for that game specifically. And, so it sounds like they're going to take advantage there. With regards to Offord specifically, I think Oregon has a legitimate shot there. And I do think that this is Oregon versus Ohio State currently. I think Alabama's kind of faded. I think Auburn's kind of hanging in there, but really it feels like that would be an incredibly tough pull for them. So right now it looks like Oregon has a 50-50 shot potentially at flipping him. So elite corner, obviously no reason not to bring him in. And, I've done this for a long time. And, everybody's going to point to Kayvon Thibodeau. And that is a great example. I'm telling you, when these guys show up to Eugene and there's an atmosphere like we're expecting for that weekend, it's dynamite. It's absolutely the best recruiting tool that you absolutely have is showcasing a game day at Autzen and an electric atmosphere. And we know that that's win or lose. Don't worry about the outcome. Don't worry if Oregon wins or loses. That's not going to dictate what Naim Offord does with his commitment. Just the atmosphere and the way the coaches coach and all that is going to be what he's after.
It is an interesting dynamic, Justin, isn't it? That they're going to bring in not even just an opponent that an opponent's commit that they're facing, right? But it's Ohio State, so it's not like they're bringing in Naim Offord with the expectation that they're not going to be able to match up with Ohio State. I think to some degree you could maybe say, hey, Lanning sees that game on the calendar, and maybe that's the big swing that they take in their recruitment. If that's the only weekend that we can get you out here, who cares? And I'm not saying Lanning said this. I'm just kind of trying to get inside the mind, kind of a deal. So if Oregon can win that game, what a statement that would send in that recruitment. And then also, we talked about this on a recent show, I think, if they were to lose that game, sure, that's not the development that you want, but I gotta think, Justin, that atmosphere, the tradition, the hype, the energy around that game to some degree is going to probably register with Naim Offord. But to your point, I do feel like they are probably in the thick of it with Ohio State, as weird as that sounds when you're recruiting a committed prospect. Makes sense that the school that they're committed to would be your top competition. But I don't know. I need to maybe do a little bit of digging here, because I think Auburn probably had the best summer out of any team in college football from a recruiting standpoint. And I think that I can at least say that they're the in-state school that has the better chance between them and Alabama. But we saw Oregon miss on DJ Pickett. So you're going to keep going for as many people that are going to listen to you and that you think are going to be able to contribute to your program at a high level. And for Chris Hampton and Rashad Wadood, I bet they want to continue recruiting DJ Pickett. And then, hey, Naim Offord, you still want to hear us out? We got a spot for you.
Yeah, I do. Of the two in-state schools, because this is an Alabama native here, I think Auburn has the better chance. Auburn and Tennessee both cleaned up on the recruiting trail in the last month and a half. No doubt about that. So, yeah, again, just keep chipping away. Here's what I do like. It's August. That game is obviously mid-October. So that means for now that you have at least a couple months to keep working on him, right? I mean, he hasn't shut things down. And, that's the one thing, if you're Oregon, you don't want, is when these kids say, hey, I'm shutting it down, and they legitimately do shut it down. Then you have no chance. So I love that Oregon still has a chance here. And, again, the number one recruiting tool I've ever seen out of the University of Oregon, regardless of who the head coach is an electric game day atmosphere at Autzen Stadium. So Offord's definitely going to get that.
No doubt about it. Thank you for the question, Chris541. Got a comment here from Robert Berry, who says, in Lanning we trust. In the end, this class will be top 8. Justin, I think that with Oregon at the number 7 spot right now, after the 2024 cycle, I said that top 5 territory would be a little bit more of the norm for the Ducks moving forward. And I think even though you've had some bumps in the road, some hiccups, I think that's still probably your expectation if you're Oregon. I don't know if all the fans are necessarily looking at it that way, but we've covered this team for a while now. After seeing what they did in 2024 and the pieces they already have in place in 2025, I think that's another important point to mention here. Even though they're at number 7 right now, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Oregon was able to ink the number 5 class come signing day. It'll
be a top 5 class. I appreciate that Robert is being realistic, because he is, and most fans aren't. Like, it's got to be number 1 or we failed. That's not real. It'll be top 5. I know Oregon's taken a few bumps here last month and a half or whatever. Picked up some nice pieces to 26, lost a couple 25s. They'll be all right. There's going to be, I can guarantee you there will be chaos in college football come November, December. Teams that should have won won't. Head coaches will be at different jobs, whether they're fired, whether they're taking a new job. Coordinators will be promoted and take head coaching positions. Assistant coaches will move up to coordinators or be fired. I can guarantee that's going to happen. So if you're Oregon, you're basically just waiting for some of the news to fall. You stay in touch with these guys, even if they're not very responsive. You just keep staying in touch, because when that moment strikes, they're going to remember, oh man, Oregon's been, talking to me still. And my, position coach just left for the rival or whatever. And boom, that's when you pounce. Lanning's done it before. He'll do it again. This will be a top 5 class.
We're rolling on a Thursday, August 22nd, 2024. Thank you guys so much for coming along with us for another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you guys haven't already. Maybe you take it a step further and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out anytime Justin and I go live to bring you the latest in Oregon football recruiting, which you can also find over at ScoopDuck.com. Come and try us out at ScoopDuck.com. There is no better time. Football season is here, and the Ducks start off their season next weekend with the Idaho Vandals coming to Eugene. Justin, let's keep it rolling here. We got another question from Up to Sco, who says, "Hey, Max and J-Hop, I just got done reading about the Fasusi write-up. Any updates trying to bring him up, or have we just completely stopped recruiting him? I feel like our O-line recruiting has fallen off." You want to start with this one, Justin?
Up to Sco, I don't blame you for feeling like it's fallen off. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, hey, it's sunshines and rainbows. They've missed on guys, and let's not beat around the bush. They need offensive tackles. They need offensive tackles now, and they need them in the future. So if you are saying I have some concern, I'm here to say you're probably validated in having some concern. Are you pushing the panic button? Okay, that's probably a little bit too much, but if you have just some concern, and I share them with you, I agree with you. And to answer your question specifically about Fasusi, I just posted an update on ScoopDuck right before actually hopping on here. And, basically I give it away. There's updates on others in there, not just Fasusi as well. But I don't think Oregon's really continuing much of an effort there, committed to Oklahoma. And, as far as I can tell, the Ducks have kind of moved on from that recruitment. So what does that mean moving forward? I wish I had a better answer to give you at this time. We'll probably get one. I do trust that Dan, the man, has a plan, and he'll figure it out. Him and Marshall will, like I say, continue staying in touch with guys. And again, I'll revert back to what I just said. There will be chaos in college football. Okay, come late October, November, December, there will be chaos. Maybe an offensive line coach leaves and gets an OC job. Maybe he moves laterally. Maybe he's just fired. We don't know. And, when that happens, Oregon will be, ready to pounce if anybody pops up. But yeah, right now I share your concerns.
Offensive line recruiting definitely hasn't been ideal for Oregon this cycle. We all know that, but they got some solid pieces in the fold right now with Zaire Addison obviously being a big one from Florida, and then Dimitri Manning from the state of Washington. And then, I just still can't get this guy's name down, the Gorman guy. I don't know if you're having any issues with it too, Justin, but I need to have it in front of me. Alai Kala Niuvalu out of Bishop Gorman along the interior. So you got some good pieces in place. And I really like your point just as far as the coaching carousel, the transfers and everything. Like, every school to varying degrees is going to benefit from that. And every school to varying degrees is going to get hurt by that. And I think Oregon's at the point where more often than not, they're going to be on the benefiting end of it because they solidified themselves as a top program nationally. So the only other thing I'll add on Fasusi and the offensive line recruiting is just that we're starting to see some new offers go out, not necessarily so much in the 2025 class. I feel like they have a pretty good feel on who they want to focus on there, but a lot can happen in the season. We'll see coaches pop up at games that maybe we didn't expect them to, or we'll see guys pop up on campus at Oregon and they're committed to other schools possibly. So there's still just so much unknown when it comes to all of that I think you just kind of have to still give some of that confidence to the staff that they're going to be able to leave no stones unturned and ultimately sign a good group. But I think the pressure is kind of on for Alik Terry and the Ducks to sign a top offensive line group moving forward in the 2025 class and beyond. You got a good start in 26 with Cody Green, of course. Let's talk about another top 2025 guy, Justin, someone who's been on my radar for a little bit, but is kind of just getting onto Oregon fans' radar right now. And that is 2025 Fullerton, California, Troy tight end Vander Ploog. I know you wrote about him a little bit earlier on today in your ScoopDuck Insider piece with some updates on a couple of Oregon targets, but he just landed an offer from the Ducks last night. And the interesting wrinkle that I'm sure Duck fans will be excited about is that he's currently committed to Washington. So if you can get your spatula out for one of the top commits in this Jedfish Washington class, I think Duck fans will be all for it. I really like Ploog from what I've seen from him. covering him out here in Southern California. 3-sport athlete: football, basketball, baseball, 6'6", 200 plus pounds. I think this guy is a budding star. And honestly, I feel like he's kind of flown under the radar because he's not at one of these top Southern California powerhouse programs, and as such has not gotten the exposure that I think he deserves.
Yeah, I agree. And, Ploog had actually visited Oregon in the spring, so he's been on campus already. And I think what you see here is, let's call a spade a spade. Is this a little bit of a backup offer? Yeah, a little bit, because, obviously you lose Brame, you don't get Lincoln Cure, your big three, if you will, you didn't land on. But on the same hand, this is a guy Oregon had already been evaluating. This is a guy they'd already been keeping tabs on. They brought him in for a visit, never offered. And why didn't they offer? Well, because he probably would have taken advantage of the offer and would have committed almost immediately if they had. Now, has his sentiment changed, in those 3, 4, 5 months? Maybe, possibly not. I mean, if he likes Oregon that much, he might not have changed. But, I think now you see the offer go out, because even if he hasn't played a game yet, you can still watch practice film. Most of these high schools are recording their practices. So my guess is, without checking, Oregon, went back and reevaluated him based on maybe a scrimmage. Maybe he hasn't played a game. Maybe he has already played a game and I've missed it. I know some are starting this weekend. There's been a few games here and there. My point is, I think they had a chance to kind of reevaluate him with some senior film now, and take a look there. So I would imagine that was a big reason why the offer came now as well.
The timing of the offer is certainly something I think that raises some eyebrows. And I think if you look at the surface, it's kind of like, well, you didn't want me earlier, why do you want me now, kind of a deal. So that is kind of what the point that we were talking to a bit. But he does really like Oregon. Every time I've talked to him about Oregon, he's been really, really complimentary of the Ducks and Drew Maringer and the rest of the staff. So he's already visited Oregon before. Now you have a foundation to kind of build on if you're looking at the Oregon angle in this recruitment. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets out to campus for a visit at some point this season. But at the same time, I'm curious how Oregon wants to manage the numbers here. Do they want just one tight end? Do they want 2 tight ends? And where does Ploog ultimately fall in that pecking order? But he is absolutely a name to watch. Oregon is pretty much the biggest offer that he has now on his offer sheet, that I think is around 10 schools. So he's certainly going to be an interesting name to watch here moving forward in the 2025 class. Another big name in 2025. Let's go to our guy, Christian Alvarez, here with the question: thoughts on Dallas Wilson with his recruitment? We, of course, know Dallas Wilson's the 5-star wide receiver out of the state of Florida, Tampa Bay area, committed to Oregon, but there's been no shortage of schools that have continued to try and pry him away from the Ducks. Justin, I feel like Dallas Wilson's probably pretty solid here. Maybe we don't need to go too in depth, but what do you think about this question from Christian?
Yeah, good question. And I'm glad you asked. I mean, it's, you got a kid that's committed who's, 300-ish miles away, from your school, and he's a 5-star. He's an elite guy. Everybody wants him. Florida, UCF, Miami, all the in-state schools have continued to recruit him. And, and I don't blame them. The Keith Niebuhr, who covers the Florida Gators for us with On 3, has gone to see Dallas Wilson at his school multiple times this summer. And every time Wilson has said, hey, I'm locked in with Oregon. I'm committed. Yeah, I might take a couple visits, whatever, but as long as nothing changes at Oregon, I'm probably good. You can't ask him to say anything more or better than that. So he's saying all the right things. As long as he keeps saying those things and says them into November and December, then Oregon's obviously in great shape. But for me, having done this, and Dallas Wilson has given zero indication of this, it's just me and my experience. I just wonder if distance becomes a thing as we get closer to signing day. And so that's what I'll be tracking. I'm fairly confident that, for the next 2 or 3 months, everything will be fine. I'm just hoping when it reaches December and when this moment actually finally gets here, like, oh crap, I'm about to move from mom and my auntie and my grandma and my little sister and whoever, you're close to, I'm about to move 3,000 miles away from them. That realization definitely changes the mindset a little bit. So think they're good. And, I think we can trust in Junior Adams to hold on there for a while, hopefully.
And maybe helping Oregon's case here, Justin, I'm trying to think of the specifics of what were said, but Dallas Wilson did release this kind of cool video where he was doubling down on his commitment to Oregon, just talking about his love for the Ducks and his relationships over there with the staff. So not many people, I think, go to that effect, go to those efforts to try and double down and just quiet all the rumors. I think he said something along the lines of like shut down the noise, but at the same time, as long as he continues to take visits to other schools, which I don't think he's really closed himself off to, and I can't blame you. Why would you? If you have the opportunity to go see Florida State, Florida, Miami, UCF, like any of those schools, I think you would definitely want to take advantage of it. I would if I were a recruit in those shoes. So I think Dallas Wilson looks like, to your point, he's saying all the right things, and you got reason to be confident that he's going to be a Duck. But how much weight will distance carry when it comes time to sign that dotted line? Before we get any further, got to give a quick shout out to one of our sponsors here on the Duck Dish podcast, and that is Ranchito Grill in Springfield. Not sure what your dinner plans are tonight, but head on over to Ranchito Grill at 1537 Mohawk Boulevard. Try their tortillas, the homemade tortillas, that is, and they got great food, a great environment, and they will take care of you. Say what's up to my guy Ruben and let him know that Max Torres sent you. Ruben, like clockwork, is here in the chat on the stream. And Ruben's question, best duo in the biz, Max and J-Hop. My question is there a chance that Oregon can win a natty in the next 5 years? That would be amazing. You want to go for this one, Justin?
Sure. Yeah. One thing, and I linked it. Obviously, it's our competitor, but 24/7 Sports. One of my favorite features that they do yearly is the team talent composite. Right. So all the guys on your team, they look at their rating, whatever, average it, put it together. They just did that this morning. Oregon came in at number 6, so they have the 6th most talented team per ratings and rankings. So. And again, if that's using composite, that typically means that they're averaging some of the other sites' rankings along with it. So it's not just 24/7. I didn't read if that's the case or not, but I would assume it is. Just based on that, Oregon's recruiting better than they were the last 2, 3, 4 years. And so, you got to assume that team talent composite is going to continue to rise. I know people want to pinpoint to certain, anomalies, but it takes talent to win a national championship, period. You got to have good coaches, but you got to have the talent. All right. There's anomalies every, maybe 20 years, maybe there's one. Otherwise, it's Alabama and it's Georgia and it's Clemson. It's all these guys with the most talent winning these big football games. Oregon's getting there. I think this is the most talented team this year that we've seen at Oregon. And, they have all the pieces in place. Obviously, it's a new conference. Obviously, it's a new playoff format. So those things will be new wrinkles that just make it more interesting. Oregon can win one in the next 5 years if they continue to recruit the way they are. You already look at the 2026 class, and it's, the number 1 class in that, it's early, but it's number 1 in that year. Oregon's got the number 7 class now. I guarantee they'll finish in the top 5 this year for 25 as well. So they're going to keep bringing in the talent. And, I think one of my favorite things about Dan Lanning that doesn't get talked about enough is his humility, right? And so, we've had coaches in the past that have made mistakes. They all make mistakes, right? They all make mistakes. And we've had coaches in the past, I'm talking specifically at Oregon, that didn't want to seem to learn from those mistakes, right? They would keep making the same mistake over and over. And you're like, bro, what are you doing? You could just fix that. I think Dan Lanning does an exceptional job in this area. When he does make a mistake, we rarely see him make the same mistake twice, right? And so I think to have that kind of humility is what's needed as a head coach. Even Nick Saban had to adjust the way he ran offense at Alabama during his dynasty years, and it was that kind of humility which gave Alabama the chance to continue competing for those national championships, because the college football game had changed, and he realized you couldn't just smash the ball down their throats for 4 quarters and win the football games. You had to throw the ball. You had to. He adapted. He continued winning. It's one of my favorite things about Dan Lanning. So the answer is yes.
Adaptability is a huge, huge part for any head coach and any coach in general. That doesn't even go for a head coach. I think position coaches, analysts, recruiting staffers, whatever it is, you got to be able to learn and take those lessons and go out and apply them I don't need to belabor the point. I think they can get it done in the next 5 years. Definitely with the way that they're recruiting, with how committed Dan Lanning is to Oregon, and as he continues to evolve as a head coach, we'll see the coaching carousel come and go every offseason. But I think he's also proven that he is a very strong hirer. That's definitely not the word I was looking for, but he is very adept at moving and navigating those departures, and they've really panned out for the most part, or at least more often than not. So I say yes. I think that Oregon can win a national championship in the next 5 years. A couple more questions that we're going to hit on from you guys before we head out of here. Justin, this is an interesting one coming from Adam Windsor. Any thought on the recent offer to linebacker Luke Metz? Yeah, Luke Metz is an interesting one. He's currently committed to the Alabama Crimson Tide, and he is from Mill Creek High School in Georgia. So, going to be a tough pull just by hearing those things. Alabama commit, and he's from Georgia. But maybe this is someone that Lanning has some ties with from his time at Georgia on the Georgia staff. Admittedly, I don't know a whole lot about Luke Metz. I did reach out to him for an interview, and he said he would be up for it, but I haven't been able to get in contact with him since. And I think this is an interesting development because, as we all know, Oregon doesn't have any linebacker commits right now. So you got to keep researching, keep looking and evaluating your options. We'll see if he gets out on campus for a visit, because that, in my opinion, is really the first step at seeing if any recruit is actually that interested. Actions speak louder than words. Do you like us? Are you interested? If so, come out and visit. But even more so here, seeing that he's already got a home and he has been committed to the Crimson Tide since March.
Yeah, going to be a tough pull. I think at the moment I would label this as a long shot. Doesn't mean that can't change, right? Time can change that. Relationships, like you said, a visit if they can get him on campus. So I don't blame Oregon for offering here. He's a really good looking linebacker and fits what Dan Lanning likes out of his linebackers in his defense. But right now, I mean, he's continued to say all the right things about Alabama, as Dallas Wilson has for Oregon. And until he visits, long shot right now. I think honestly, Oregon has a better shot at flipping Noah McHale than Luke Metz right now. So, and I'm not saying he's going to flip. I'm just saying if I'm playing the odds, that's the one I'd pick right now. So, good question. Glad you asked, Adam. But yeah, long shot for now.
Totally agree. I think that they definitely have a better shot with McHale than Metz right now. Last question for us on today's episode of the podcast from Brock Rogers. What are the chances of us getting Michael Terry at the end of, or maybe just in the end? Of course, Michael Terry, the third number one athlete in the 2025 class out of San Antonio, Texas, Alamo Heights. Justin, for Michael Terry, it seems like it's really been the same story for going on a month now, I want to say. You got Nebraska, Texas, and Oregon all in the mix there. I think Steve Wiltfong reported that he is trying to get out to a game at each of those contenders at some point this season as he takes his decision into the fall. No commitment date set just yet for Michael Terry, but based on the recent conversations that I've been having, I think right now, if I had to make a pick, I'd probably put Texas. I just think that the way that these classes have shaken out at Oregon and Texas, if you're looking at those as the final two, if it came down to those two, I think he just has more opportunity to play the position that he wants at Texas, and Oregon's class is a little bit fuller as it stands right now. That doesn't mean I'm counting the Ducks out just yet. I just think right now Texas is probably checking a little bit more of those boxes, and it looks a little bit more favorable for them.
Yeah, I kind of tend to think the opposite. I think Oregon has a slight edge, and if they do, it's very slight. And I'm with you. I think neither of us are he's going to Texas for sure, or he's going to. It's like that's the battle, and that's going to keep going back and forth. Okay, so whatever we predict today could end up being right, but we would just be making a guess. Because I genuinely believe Michael Terry when he's told me that he doesn't know which school yet, and he's also told me that I'm not decommitting, I'm committing and I'm done and it's over. And so I appreciate him taking his time. I appreciate him taking these visits. I appreciate him, keeping these schools in the mix. I appreciate that he's only got 3 schools, right? Instead of stringing these other ones that he has, no interest in along. He's basically, hey, these are the 3. I'm going to keep talking to him. I'm going to keep making, taking visits until I'm for sure on which one I like the most. And, I think Oregon's just done such a great job here. And I believe that Oregon will not be recruiting or taking any other again, is Michael Terry a tight end or is he a wide receiver? I don't think Oregon's recruiting any other receivers. I think he views himself as a receiver, so we'll call it that. I think he could help with tight end too, but the only other receiver Oregon would add, assuming they don't lose any, would be Michael Terry. So I think that's something they can sell to Michael Terry. And again, I hope this guy's on campus when Oregon plays Ohio State, because if they get him, on campus when Oregon plays Ohio State, I think they win that recruitment.
I think you'd love to get him on campus for that game if you're Oregon. Hard to find a more high-profile matchup than that. That is being billed as the early game of the year, but we'll continue to track all the latest developments in Michael Terry's recruitment over at ScoopDuck.com. So come and see us if you haven't already. Justin, any final remarks before we get out of here?
Nope. Appreciate y'all. Maybe one thing, if you're on the fence about subscribing, we're dropping a promo tomorrow on the site. So you know what? Race on over tomorrow, Friday. Treat yourself. Look at ScoopDuck. Look at the offer we're going to drop, and maybe decide to make the plunge. We appreciate you guys.
Make the plunge. Dive into the deep end. Come to the dark side. But no, seriously, come check us out. I mean, Justin and I couldn't be more excited for football season. I'm covering my first game tonight, Mater Dei versus Corona Centennial. I was driving by a school earlier today, and I heard the band playing, and I just got like goosebumps. I got so excited. That's one of my favorite parts of the high school atmosphere. So I'm going to be all over the place here in Southern California and maybe at a couple of different spots throughout the country covering some of these Oregon recruits and commits. And you can find all that coverage over at ScoopDuck.com. But if you want to find more of Justin, you can follow him on Twitter /X at JHopkinsSD. Find me at MTorresSports. And thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish Podcast.